Hey guys, welcome to another episode of the Cold One with the Boys podcast. Just to send here right now, Nathan's out jacking off or something, I don't know. But this is part 2 of a 2-part series, so make sure if you haven't listened to episode 9 with Sergeant Jeremy Ott, make sure and go listen to that one first, and this is just a continuance of that episode. Enjoy.
So you went into your first tour as, were you an E2 at the time, or were you still an E1?
I was an E1.
And you were a saw gunner, so you carried the 249.
Yep.
Okay. So you carried that your entire deployment?
Yes, I did until the military decided they wanted to try out this new thing called the... I can't remember what it's called. But, alright, so you got the 240, which shoots a 7.62, and then you got the 249, which shoots a 5.56. Mm-hmm. The 240 is a crew-served weapon. The saw is not. Mm-hmm. What they did is they combined... They pretty much took a 249, which is a saw, mm-hmm. and they beefed it up to shoot a 7.62. So it's still a single-man operated weapon system, but it shoots the caliber of a 240.
Oh, okay.
So we only had it for like a month or so, but more or less, yeah, I carried this all for my entire first deployment.
And then when you went back on second deployment, you were a sergeant at the time.
Yeah.
During your second deployment.
Yeah.
Were you weren't a team leader, were you?
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Yep.
So what is the difference between doing a deployment as, the bottom of the barrel private that, does what he's told, and then having to be a team leader in a deployment? Like, are you personally responsible for the team that's under you, or how does that work?
Right. I mean, there's not really much of a difference when you're just a regular enlisted soldier compared to a non-commissioned officer. Mm-hmm. The only real difference, from what I think, is that when you're, a private specialist, whatever, your job is to take orders and, execute those orders to the best of your ability. Mm-hmm. And obviously making sure you and your buddy go home alive. As a non-commissioned officer, it's still along the same lines as that. You're still receiving orders from your superiors, and you're still trying to execute those orders to the best of your ability. But instead of you trying to make sure that you and your buddy get home, you're trying to make sure that you and the men that serve underneath you come home alive as well. So it's not much of a difference. It's just, as an NCO, you have more responsibility rather than, just your regular average Joe.
Mm-hmm. So on your first deployment, that's during the time that the Bo Bergdahl thing happened, correct?
Right.
What is Bo Bergdahl? I have no idea.
He's you can explain it if you want to. Yeah, go ahead.
Bo Bergdahl. It happened the time that I was there. We had heard a few things about it. What had happened, what I believe happened, is this dude, he was at his cop. Politically, I'm probably wrong, even to what the news said he did, but pretty much he bitched out. He went and left his post because he didn't feel like doing it anymore, I guess. I don't know if he joined ISIS or he got picked up.
His side of the story, from what I've read, is basically what happened is he left his post, and the reason was he wanted to cause I don't even remember the term. It's a military term of like someone missing.
Okay.
Absent without leave?
No, it's not. No, it's not that. It's not AWOL. I don't remember what it is, but when someone's missing, he basically wanted to give it to the upper man. Like he wanted he said there was a lot of like insubordination and they were being mistreated by their higher ups. So he wanted to make a stand. And this is his side of the story, but he wanted to make a stand against his higher ups to show that they're being mistreated at this base that he was at. And so he left his post. He ended up going a little too far, and then he was imprisoned. That's his side of the story. Of course, a lot of the military believes that he did it on purpose and he had some kind of ties. It's a controversial topic about Bo Bergdahl, but basically he was a POW for several years. They made several videos with him. The Taliban did to try to get their own prisoners out of Guantanamo Bay. And I think it ended up how that whole thing ended up is they did trade like 5 Taliban from Guantanamo Bay for Bo Bergdahl, and
right, that's what happened. Yeah, I mean, man, it what actually happened and what everybody has been told that happened. I mean, only God and him will ever know what actually conspired that day whenever he actually left. But I mean, obviously we all know he did it of his on his own free will. He decided that he wanted to leave. Now whether he went over there and joined them or if he got captured or whatever, I mean, that's just some selfish ass shit that you don't do, because it's once a dude like that's missing out in the middle of a war zone, obviously they're gonna have to send people out to go look for him. And when you have to do unnecessary risks to go do stuff like that, you're putting other people's lives in danger that obviously don't need to be doing that, because might not know, but Afghanistan is a war zone and there are people out there trying to kill people, Americans. And when you got to go look for a dude that decided that he just wanted to leave because he wanted to show this or that or whatever, I mean, you're putting an innocent life at risk, and it's stupid.
The term, by the way, is called Dust One.
Dust
yeah
One.
That's
Have you ever heard that? I've never heard it before.
It stands for something. It's an acronym.
Sure.
But
Sure.
Yeah.
Like I said, man, there's so many acronyms I can't keep them all straight.
But yeah, that happened during that time. So was your unit in any way involved in any of that, like searching for him or anything like that?
To my knowledge, no. Could we have been? Sure.
They don't tell you guys everything.
Well, I mean that, but a lot of times, first sergeant comes out, hey, this is what we're doing. All right, Roger. And they tell our superiors, the information trickles down to us, and we're like, Roger, stepping at 1700. Where are we going? Here. Why? Because we were told to. And then we go do it, and we come back, and, hey, Roger that, we RTB'd. Where's the next place we're going to? And that's just kind of how it goes. You never really know why. Unless, I mean, let me take that back. You do know why, but you don't know why, I mean, you're there to secure the area and make sure that the freedom and movement of the civilian populace is safe.
Right. Yeah. So that first story of you experiencing combat for the first time, that sounds exhilarating, but I'm sure if I was there, I'd be shitting my pants. And I don't know if a part of you.
I mean, it's definitely. I mean, once you actually get into them real good firefights and you got, bullets whipping past your head and you see dirt kicking up around your feet and you're seeing shit getting hit. I mean, some people are made for that kind of stuff and some people aren't.
Would you consider yourself one of the people that are made for that kind of stuff?
Bro, I was born to do that.
I'm sure. Like, I think. I mean, you can correct me if I'm wrong, but I think the longer you're there, you probably. I mean, you probably started ahead of people as well, but you kind of got battle hardened over time, and that stuff just like affected you less and less and less as you were there.
Right. Yeah. Oh, for sure. You definitely get numb to things, but the longer you're there, the more tours you've done. It's more of a reaction rather than anything else. It just comes second nature.
Right.
What was probably, I mean, if you don't mind talking about it, what was your scariest moment? Like you said, the time you guys were flying in, you're like, oh, fuck, I'm going to die here. And then you say whenever you guys got stopped in that convoy and you guys are getting ready to get out, you're like, oh God, I'm going to die here. What was the scariest moment when you were overseas that you had?
Oh, that's a tough one.
Because I've heard some of the personal stories.
Okay. Most scared shitless I've ever been. Okay. So it was during my second deployment. We were out on patrol and we were at this place called North Sahib John. It's in the Kandahar province. We were in the Arghandab River Valley, which is South Afghanistan.
Mm-hmm.
And like I said, we were up at this place called North Sahib John, and it was kind of a strong point that we had built up, had some sandbags here and there, and we would patrol out there, stop, and we'd set up shop, and we would watch the area that we were in for any type of enemy movement or anything like that. And it was a real hot area. Every time we went out there, we always got shot at. Going there, we always got shot at when we were there, and we always got shot at when we went home. And it had, middle of the deployment, it happened. We were set up on this wall, and on the other side of this wall was a grape vineyard, and grape rows, and it was about 200 feet of grape rows, and then there was a small compound village on the other side of that, and we had taken fire from that village. Obviously, we had returned fire, and we had birds on station. And
when you say birds, just for people that may not know anything about the military, when you say birds, are you talking helicopters? Are you talking planes? Or what are you talking about?
Helicopters, I refer to them as birds, and then planes, they're fixed winged vehicles. We just call them fast movers.
Fast movers.
Well, that's what I call them, fast movers.
Okay.
But we had birds on station, and they said that they saw the dudes in the village hunkered down that had shot at us. And obviously they're in the middle of a village, and we're on the other side on the outskirts, so we can't directly engage them. And at on this deployment, IEDs were so they were everywhere.
Right.
The freedom for us to be able to move in the battle space was limited just because there was so much. So whenever we got shot at, we couldn't be like, oh, tally ho, motherfucker, let's go get him. And we charge after him, because we got to stay in each other's footsteps, because that's how many IEDs were around. I mean, we had to carry all these Valens and Thors, and I mean, all these things that would, defeat IEDs. So being able to chase after people that had just tried to kill us really wasn't an option. Like I said, we had helicopters that saw these dudes hunkered down in this village that was across from us, and obviously we can't shoot them, so our FO was like, we'll just call in an A-10. So they call in this A-10, it swoops in, burn, the old warthogs. Yeah, starts eating stuff up, right? And I guess they had one of the fast movers on station. When I say on station, I mean in the area. And he was like, hey, let me come over and join the party. And they've got big old bombs on these things, right? And so I'm sitting down talking to my gunner, and we're just waiting for this dude to unleash hell on these dudes. And the FO is right in front of me, which is a forward observer. He's calling us in. And we look up and we see the bird, or the airplane circling around, getting ready to come in for its bombing run. And these dudes are only like, 200-300 meters away from us. And bird starts in for its initial descent to drop the bomb. Right behind me is a ditch. All right. And in Afghanistan, they don't have plumbing. So when they shit in a pot and they dump it into a ditch or a creek
the side of the road,
on the side of their house, side of the road or whatever. So a lot of these ditches in Afghanistan are filled with feces and piss. So it's behind me.
Right.
Well, I look up. I'm like, all right, this dude's coming in. We're about to see a badass explosion, right? So he's coming in. I hear and I see the plane coming the direction of the dudes. Now, from whatever angle he was coming at, he looked like he was coming at us, which is okay.
Right.
I trust the dudes up in the sky. They're good at what they do. But as he was about to release this bomb, I don't know why my FO did it. I don't know if he was talking to somebody else or if he saw something or if a fucking ant bit him or what. But he said, "Oh shit." And
You're like, "Oh
when
God."
he said that, I look up and this bird is like right on top of us. And immediately I thought, "Oh my God, they just dropped a bomb on top of us." It was perfect how it happened. Release the bomb. He didn't say like, "Oh shit." He was like, "Oh shit." Like I thought that was it. I literally thought I was.
You can see the object
"Oh my
falling.
God, this dude just dropped a bomb on top of our fucking heads." And so the only thing that I thought to do was, well, if I'm going to try and survive this, I need to get lower, right? What's behind me?
A ditch full of shit.
At the time, full of shit didn't matter.
Right.
I was just trying to get low. So all I did is I did a little roll move and I rolled off into this ditch, right into this feces, right? I heard the explosion. It landed in the village, nowhere, I wouldn't say nowhere near us, but where it was supposed to. And then everybody just turned around looking at me. And I was like, dude, I thought we were all going to die. They were like, "What's wrong with you?" I was like, "Never mind, forget it." So I finished out that mission with, shit all over me.
Oh, yeah. So you've been in the shit, literally.
Like that was literally probably the scariest. Well, and the reason why I thought it is because a few days prior to the south of us, all right, our scouts were at this place called Aleezy. It was a compound that they had taken over and they had built HESCO walls around it, right? And that's where they would go for their missions. They would get to that strong point. They would sit there. They would observe, enemy movement, enemy activity. And they had the A-10s come in. They came in contact a couple of days before down at that location. They called the A-10s in to do gun runs on these dudes trying to move up onto their position. They were, excuse me, they were not necessarily getting overrun, but they were getting a pretty heavy enemy force there. And one of these freaking pilots, dude, flew and did a gun run straight through their compound.
Oh, man.
Like straight down the middle of their area where they were in. And they were like, wow. So when that happened, it reminded me of that. And I was like, oh my God, it's happening again. But this time it's a big ass bomb and not just bullets. So that's probably the scariest moment that I ever had over there.
I don't know why that, what you just said always makes me reminds me of the movie We Were Soldiers with Mel Gibson, where they're out in the middle of that field and that the guy's calling in the planes to drop the bombs on the guys that are coming in, and like he accidentally calls one in too close to them and he's able to call the other guy off, but they drop the bomb on their own people. Like that shit like legitimately happens, I guess.
Oh, for sure. I mean, it definitely does. I mean, like I said, we were there at that place called Northside of John. We would go there a lot, and we would get in contact, and we would get support from our mortars at our base that was a little bit behind us. They had to call in mortars to help us suppress this enemy. And this time, that one of the times that I remember, it had just rained and the ground was wet, and they were shooting mortars. Well, the first couple mortars that they shot hit their target, and then all of a sudden, this grape field that was in front of us, I saw mud start flying up.
Oh, shit.
The rounds weren't exploding, but they were going into the mud. It was so soft, I guess they weren't detonating. But I mean, I shit you not, 20 feet in front of me, mud just went, and I was like, oh my God, they're going to shell us.
Oh my God.
Like when you get into, war, things can become very complicated very quickly, and it's not just as smooth as everybody thinks it is.
It's not Hollywood.
I mean, man, there's been a lot of close calls that I've seen, and I've actually seen, fatalities from stuff like that, and it's war is a hell of a thing. A lot of people think it's just, us versus the bad guys. It's really not. I mean, it's a bigger picture than what a lot of people think it is.
So, like to pass the time, to kind of keep your spirits up in a war zone was like, what did you guys do for leisure to kind of, keep your spirits up? Did you guys joke around? Like, did you play games? Like what kind of stuff would you do like that?
Well, I mean, it's different everywhere, really. My first deployment, we didn't really have the leisure of a lot of amenities like a lot of people think we have. When we first got there on my first deployment, I lived in an abandoned schoolhouse for about a month because the base that we were going to didn't exist yet. So we actually had to live in a schoolhouse, didn't have air conditioning, didn't have heat. I mean, it had walls and had a roof, but that was about it. So we had to build our base from scratch, from ground up. And so we didn't have toilets. We didn't have living, buildings. We had to live in tents, we didn't have bathrooms. We literally had plywood boxes with a 55-gallon barrel cut in half that we shit and piss in, and then we would have to take those barrels out and we would pour JP8, which is diesel, in them, and we would have to set them on fire and stir them until they burnt to ash, and then we would dump them out. We didn't have running water, so we couldn't take baths. We had to use baby wipes, baby wipe bath. That's how we cleaned ourselves up. Every once in a while we'd be able to go to the main base where they actually had showers and shit to, actually clean ourselves. But that was usually only like once a month or so. We had to eat out of MREs, no telephones, no computers, no nothing. Now, about the 7-month mark, we had engineers that built us, wood cabins, I guess you would say. And then they would build a talk, which is where all of the higher up personnel stayed, and the battle room was and all that stuff. And then we finally got bathrooms. They built this little, I say cardboard box, but it was plywood, and they put, shitters in it. It actually had toilets, porcelain toilets that
had plumbing.
Yeah, well, yeah, they had plumbing.
Or just went into a bag.
Well, no, they had plumbing. They drilled a well in the middle of the compound, and they would suck water out of it, and it would run and flow into these bathrooms that they built. I mean, it was real like 1930s,
right?
Kind of stuff, but where it went after it flushed, I don't remember. But I mean, eventually we got stuff, and then we got a few computers and a telephone and stuff like that. And, so we lived pretty good the last couple of months. And, my second deployment where we went, the base was already built. We didn't have wood buildings, but we had pretty decent tents. They already had generators there, so we had electricity, we had AC, but I mean, when you're working in 125 degree heat all day long, and the AC doesn't really work that good. But I mean, they had like these little conic showers. And when I say conics, I mean like things that semis carry. They had like bathrooms in those, and they had shower that would, they had water tanks that were hooked to them, and they had a computer lab, or they had computers, and they had phones, and we actually had Wi-Fi internet there on my second deployment. So, I mean, literally, we were in the middle of fucking nowhere.
And they could get Wi-Fi internet.
We could get Wi-Fi there. So,
and I can't get Cox to give me internet in the Broken Arrow area. That's how awesome it is.
It was pretty dope. But, I mean, for things that we do to spare time, a lot of us, we worked out. Anytime that we had spare time, a lot of the time it was sleeping. I tell you what, I watched the shit out of some movies, some TV series. Oh, dude, I would binge. Like, people talk about binge watching on Netflix. They don't know shit about binge watching. I mean, I would go, dude.
I don't know. You can go talk to Ann about that.
If I wasn't sleeping and I wasn't on mission, I was binge watching stuff, or, we'd all go to the gym each day, every day. Just kind of keep us busy, keep our minds off of everything.
I don't think you guys need to go to the gym. I've seen some of the pictures. You look like a stick.
Well,
I mean, you guys probably don't eat regular meals like you do here.
Well, I mean, we do, but we don't. 50-60% of the time we weren't ever there. We were out on patrol. And when I say we go out on patrol, it's not like we just go out, kind of fuck off and shoot some shit and then come back. No, we go out and we stay out there for weeks at a time. And then once our ammunition gets low, or, our rations are getting low or whatever, we turn around, we walk all the way back. And then we get, a day off, and then we'll get, 4 or 5 days where we're actually back at our COP. But those 4 or 5 days, we'll be, obviously cleaning weapons, restocking shit, And then obviously we're in the middle of a war zone, so we have guard towers that guard our little cop, and those have to be manned 24/7. So when we're not out on mission, we're in the guard towers pulling security, making sure dudes ain't trying to get into the cop.
Right.
So it's really, there's not really downtime, but there is. I mean, you find downtime.
Yeah. Yeah. So so when you were together with your platoon and everything, I mean, over time you get this bond with your platoon members and your squad and everything. What is that like whenever you get off tour and you come back home, back to civilian life? Is it do you have like a longing for that? Like when you came back, did you want to go back to Afghanistan?
Yes and no.
Do you miss the people or do you miss the experience? Like, if you had to choose between, having the people or being there, I guess. Like, I'm assuming you miss the people more that you were with.
I'd say it's a difficult question to answer. Trying to put it into words. I tell you what, when you're over there, you can't think of anywhere else you'd rather be than be right here stateside chilling. But once you get back stateside, when you're talking about the guys in my platoon, I mean, you form a bond that's, I mean, it's stronger than anything I've ever experienced. I mean, those dudes, they come from people that you've never seen in your entire life to, literally would die for. I mean, they are brothers. They're not blood, but they are the closest thing that you can get to being related than actually being blood. I mean, those dudes were brothers. I mean, we would die for each other. Obviously, when you come back, I mean, when you're still in the military, you still see them 24/7. I mean, you're still training. When you're not in a war zone, you're back at, in America at your base, you're training 24/7. So you're always with them. Now, when you get out of the military, that does kind of take a role in the getting out process, I could say, because the camaraderie that you get when you're actually with those dudes in the military, it can't be matched in the civilian world. And then when you say about actually being in Afghanistan, man, that place is a fucking shithole. Dude, it sucks. I mean, oh man, bad.
You were living the third world country life, basically.
I'm telling you, dude, it's like now, like if they put up some resorts, like some like ski slopes and some pools,
ski slopes in the sand,
some like some like Marriotts and like some Hiltons. I mean, it's a beautiful country. It really is. I mean, it would be like an outdoorsman's paradise. It really is. It's a cool place, but man, it's a shithole. Bad. But the one thing a lot of people, like, they ask me, they're like, would you ever go back? And, like, why would you go back? And, when you're in Afghanistan and you're in a war zone in the military, what's the one thing that you got to make sure of?
You come home.
You come home. You and your boys come home. That's it. That's your only responsibility. All you got to do is make sure that you stay alive and bring your boys home.
Well,
that's it.
I mean, the reason...
Right.
Now, when you're in the States, what do you got to worry about? You got to worry about getting up and going to work. You got to worry about paying your damn mortgage. You got to worry about not getting fired. You got to worry about doing this. You got to worry about not doing that. You got to worry about, there's 100. You got to make sure you're making your quota at work. You got to make sure that you're driving the speed limit. You got to make sure you're not breaking laws. You got to make sure that, you are going to work so your bills can get paid. When you're in Afghanistan, there ain't none of that. You ain't got to worry about.
It's a more simplistic life.
It is. It really is. There's only one thing that you worry about, and that's making sure to stay alive, and that's it. That's really all it is. So when you think about it like that, life over there is easy. And if you look at it that way, I mean, staying alive might not be easy, but it's only the only one thing that you have to worry about.
Yeah, I mean, the reason I asked the question, I just finished a book called Tribe by Sebastian Junger, and it basically talked about how humans in their core are a tribal species. So in that sense, there's a lot of articles and things that say that when military personnel comes back to civilian life, they don't want to do anything more but go back with their platoon back in the war zone, just because they just form such a bond that it, like you said, it's nothing else can compare in civilian life to something like that. And that's why I was wondering if you had an experience like that.
Yeah. I mean, whenever, like I said, you go over to this foreign country with guys that you've never met before in your entire life. Obviously, you met them once you got to your unit, but the trials and tribulations that you actually go through with those dudes define your friendship and brotherhood with those guys, and it forms a bond that can't be replaced by any other, individual. And then, say for instance, when you come back, a lot of people, they PCS and they change duty stations and they go to a place where they don't know anybody. It's all brand new people. I mean, you don't know those dudes. I mean, they've been in the military. They might have deployed before, but they haven't deployed with you. They haven't proven themselves to you yet. So, I mean, it is hard to, go back over there with, a fresh group of guys. But once you get over there with those fresh group of guys and you get in that first initial contact or that firefight and you actually see that they stay there, stand behind you, fight with you, I mean, the bond, it hardens pretty quickly.
Yeah. I mean, I can't think of anything like that other than, Nathan being one of my best friends, but I can't think of a bond like that quite that close, I guess.
Yeah, it's a very real but not very common bond, I would say.
Something you can only experience probably if you're in the military. I mean, I've never been in the military, so I can't say, but I'm assuming there's probably a bond that infantry people share together that nobody else in the military probably shares the same. Yeah, they may deploy with somebody, but they don't have that bond that comes from combat experience with each other, I'm assuming.
Right.
Okay. Yeah.
So what made you leave the military? What caused you not to reenlist, or did you want to reenlist, or were you just done?
I re-enlisted one time on my first deployment. I was like, you know what? I really haven't figured out what I want to do with my life after this. So I decided, I was like, you know what? Why not? Let's re-up. So I re-up for another 5 years. But when I came back from my first deployment, my wife got pregnant with our first child, and my child was actually born 3 months before I deployed in my second deployment. And once you have a child and you go to war, it kind of changes your outlook on a lot of things. From, your life back at home to even as far as the civilian people that you meet over there. And, I only knew my daughter for a short 3 months, and then I deployed. And then when I came home, she was already over, a year old. And, when I got there, my wife says she knows who I was, but when I saw her when I came home on leave, I had almost been gone for a year already. And she didn't, I feel that, she didn't know who I was. And I was like, that's my daughter right there. And I've been gone through the majority of her first year of life. She doesn't know who I am. This feeling's not really all that great. And I don't want to miss any more, of my daughter's life. And so whenever I came back from my second deployment, I decided, I was like, you know what? I got a family now. I need to start transitioning my priorities to my family and not the military. A saying that they have in the military that whenever you start climbing ranks, they'll ask you, like, you want to be a non-commissioned officer, you want to be a family man. And it is just a saying, and it has a little bit of humor in it, but in all honesty, it really is how it is. I mean, do you want to be a military man or do you want to be a family man? It really is hard to juggle both just because the military consumes so much of your time. Even when you are home in the States, I mean, you're gone, 3 months out of the year, out in the middle of nowhere training. You might be in the same state, but you're out in the middle of nowhere for weeks at a time doing training operations, and you're not actually coming home. And then you go to things like JRTC and NTC, where you actually travel to different states to where you do training for months at a time, and you're gone. You don't get to see your family. And then you do, OPT, which is off-post training, which is, different areas, and you're gone for weeks, months at a time. And then, once all that's done, in your preparation to actually go overseas, then you go and you're gone for an entire year, and you don't actually get to, deal with all of that family interaction, and you're missing out on a lot of it. And, after coming back and, my daughter being 1 year old, I missed all of her, learning how to walk, learning how to talk, her first foods, all that stuff. And I was like, you know what? I really don't want to do that anymore. And the war was starting to draw down. They were starting to put all these big ROEs where you can't shoot at people until they shoot you, and like I said, the war is dying down. They were starting to stop sending people overseas. I mean, the focus turned from killing people to winning the hearts and minds of the populace, and more or less turning military compounds over to the Afghan government and kind of doing like a handoff to be like, hey, we're getting ready to leave. We're going to teach you guys how to do all this stuff. And so it wasn't really us going out and doing the fighting. It was us taking them out, being like, hey, you go kill the bad guys. We'll be here if you need us. And that's not what I signed up for. What did I sign up for?
Sign up to kill people.
Exactly. And that wasn't the name of the game anymore. So I was like, you know what? I don't like doing any of this other stuff. So I was like, when the next war comes around, you can let me know. But until then, I'm going to go ahead and punch that ticket. And I'm going to head back and be a civilian and see what that's all about.
So,
because, I joined when I was 18. So I've never really actually, experienced the civilian world. Mm-hmm. And I was like, I'm going to go give that a try.
So even if, your daughter wasn't in the picture, and let's say, your family in general, if that wasn't in the picture, you think you still would have left?
If I wasn't married and didn't have kids, I would probably still be in right now.
Okay.
So family is what drove you to leave?
I would say so, yes.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
I mean, that makes sense.
Yeah.
I think family's probably the most important thing. But I mean, if you don't have a wife and a child, the military is your family.
Yeah, exactly.
So
exactly.
I gotcha. We talked about what your scariest moment was. What is your favorite moment, or like a funny moment? Because it really hasn't been morbid, but there are some fun times or funny times that you guys have over there. And I'll let you pick the story that you want to tell, but this is kind of a weird story, but it was funny to me when you told me about the guy you guys like duct tape up and you like put the heart rate monitors and stuff on him. You started doing some weird shit. Like, you guys find things to do to enjoy yourselves and have a good time. What are some of the funny or fun times you guys have while you're over there?
Fun. Oh man, we try and turn everything into a joke as much as possible, because that kind of keeps us sane. Funniest. Oh man.
Or what? Like, is there a good memory that you have of, a select group of people, or a certain thing that you guys did where something that stands out in your mind, the first thing you think of when you think of having fun or smiling for the first time in a war-torn area?
Man, I'll tell you what. I got it. First thing that came to my mind. So there's this other place called South Sayab John, which is obviously south of North Sayab John.
Right.
We nicknamed it the Death Star, and it was a compound that we had taken over. Obviously, it's a strong point now. We go out there, yada yada yada, same thing. So we go out there weeks at a time, and no power, no nothing, and we were out in the middle of nowhere. We were away from all the high ups. It was just us and the squad. Mm-hmm. We go out there, we do our thing. We finally actually got a diesel generator flown into that compound, so we had electricity. And I had actually taken an Xbox 360 with me on this deployment. Mm-hmm. And the previous deployment, when we were leaving, there was a projector that was left, and they were like, if anybody wants this, take it or not, we're leaving. I was like, you know what, projector, I'll take it. Never used it, but then I was like, I'm deploying again, I'll take it, we might use it. Mm-hmm. Well, in this compound, there was a whole bunch of mud rooms, and So what we did is we took that projector and we took that Xbox 360 and we took an extension cord and we ran an extension cord from the generator into one of those rooms and we plugged up a freaking Xbox 360 onto the projector and projected it onto the wall.
Nice.
And we were in the middle of Afghanistan in a war playing Xbox 360. I mean, we were playing Call of Duty. You know what I mean?
Of course.
We'd get the 4 split screen and we'd sit there and we'd battle each other and we'd play zombies and, you know, we'd be sitting there playing and you'd be like, and like, oh shit, we're getting shot at. And we'd put our controllers down, go back, shoot into the fucking darkness. And then we'd be like, all right, I think it's dead. We'd go back in there, pick up the controllers again and start playing Modern Warfare 3, you know? So, I mean, that's a really good memory. I mean, we played hours on that shit. So,
that's awesome.
All right. Well, I'm going to go ahead and get us over to the random thought of the day segment to close out this 2-parter that we're going to have here. So this one's kind of silly, but whatever. Random thoughts are always silly, right?
Absolutely.
So while you were on tour, if you were out there and you dropped a piece of bread onto the ground, and then I was here in the U.S. and I dropped a piece of bread, the earth would temporarily be a sandwich.
What the fuck?
Unless you believe in the flat earth theory, and then I don't know what to fucking tell you.
Well, you know, I've actually been watching some flat earth theories.
You know, he likes to play the devil advocate on a lot of shit. And
all right, go ahead, convince me.
Drives me insane.
Well, I want to.
You want me to convince you? I can really convince you on the flat earth theory.
Go ahead. I'm ready. I'm ready.
Really? Oh no, this is gonna have to be a whole nother segment.
Oh god.
Yeah, I listen to Joe Rogan. All right.
Jesus Christ.
I've personally listened to the flat earthers on Joe Rogan, and they're all idiots. Like I have yet to be convinced. I don't get it.
I don't know, but back to the sandwich. Yes, I would have to say that it would be a sandwich.
It'd be a pretty lopsided sandwich. I'm pretty sure the Middle East isn't like right on the other side of the world, but yeah, whatever. It works.
It might be.
All right, man. Well, it was good having you on. I had a lot of fun listening. It was really interesting to me to hear these stories of what happens over there. Obviously, I've never been, anywhere close to anything like that, and I'm thankful that I've never done that. So I want to thank you for your service.
Hey.
And hopefully, that those kind of things never come to the United States to where, people like myself have to take up arms, because I'd suck at it. But
you'd be going out without your stripes.
Yeah.
Your stars and stripes on though, wouldn't you?
Yeah, I'd be that guy that like a fucking bomb drops on me while I'm taking a shit or something like it.
Hey, it happens.
Yeah, it is
apparently.
what it is, man.
I guess it is what it is. But all right.
Sure as hell ain't one of them.
All right, guys. Well, please check out the Actions Per Minute Network at actionsperminute.net to check out our website. You can email us at coldonepodcast@gmail.com to contact us directly. Make sure to follow us on Twitter and Facebook, which is both at Cold One Podcast. That way you know when new episodes are up. Also, we now do have a Discord up, and that information is also on our website. So you can go there and join us when we're gaming. You can actually game with Sergeant Ott here sometime. He games with us all the time. So you can hang out with us. And lastly, please go to iTunes or whatever podcast app you use. Hit that sub button and give us a good rating. It really helps us out. Any last thoughts, guys?
Yeah, if you guys wouldn't mind helping us out, head on over to Twitter at Cold One Podcast and give us a follow. If you don't, it's one of the main social media sites that we post whenever we put our new episodes up. Go over there, give us a follow. Lets us know you guys are listening. You guys are enjoying what we're doing. You can always comment on anything we have going on and let us know what you guys think.
All right. Thanks, guys. And we will see you next week.
Laters.
Peace.
Yeah.